Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to head back to Latvia once again, and we're going to return to a brewery that's featured on the channel once before. Now, the last beer that I reviewed from these guys was quite a random find in Copenhagen, a New England hazy IPA, but it turned out to be really quite nice, and the main reason that I picked it up was just because I hadn't heard of this brewery. But it turned out to be a very good decision, and then a couple of years later, now that I'm based in Hong Kong, I happened across some of their beers once again. So the one that we're going to have a look at today is a style that I haven't tried from this brewery before. It is a style that these guys have apparently gotten very good at over the last couple of years. So I have to say I'm just very curious to see what this one's going to be like. So hopefully it's another good beer. Hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always, I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, we are going to head to Latvia, like I said. These guys are a sort of contract gypsy brewery, so they don't have any particular home location, but I guess we could say ODU if we want to. But we're going to have a look then at my second beer from ODU Brewery. So this particular beer comes from their Brix series, which is a series of smoothie sour beers, all of them having different fruits, but this one is the peach and lime edition. So yeah, it comes in at 5.5% ABV, and this is a smoothie sour. So yeah, this is another beer that I picked up at the wonderful Gur Beer in the One Mall in Chimshatchui here in Hong Kong, who always have a very, very good selection of stuff. And I think they had like 4 or 5 of these different Brix beers, if I'm not mistaken. But this one caught my eye simply for the fact that I've not had a peach and lime sour before. And yeah, you don't often find peach sours in Europe actually. The only one I can think of that I had was the Persicos Faber from Brewski, and that was a good couple of years ago actually. But yeah, the other ones were berry sours. We get those quite often in Scotland and Sweden and things, so this one was a wee bit different. So I went for this, and yeah, I do enjoy peach flavour actually. So needless to say, looking forward to this one. Let's crack on and see what this beer has in store for us. The Brix Peach and Lime 5.5% smoothie sour from ODU Brewery in ODU, Latvia. So, as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery once again before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from ODU Brewery before, and we will hopefully add some more to that list at some point in the near future. It seems that these guys are getting their beer out there a little bit more, which is pretty cool. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support you give is massively appreciated. And remember, you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. So go in there, use the little search bar, put in your hometown, state, county, province, whatever you like. If I've reviewed beers from the area that you search for, they will pop up. Failing that, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the Latvian playlist along with a number of other things. And that's being added to whenever I get the opportunity, and hopefully we can go and visit Latvia at some point. That is definitely on the list. But yeah, let's go on to my brewery notes then, and I'll tell you a wee bit about ODU Brewery once again, and I will apologise in advance for any bad Latvian pronunciations, because it's just a language I'm really not that familiar with. But yeah, as I kind of mentioned to you already, ODU Brewery are a contract gypsy brewery, whatever you want to call it, and these guys are based in Latvia, and the company was founded by Rihards Fuchsis and Egis Šmagaris. So the brewery takes its name from ODU, which is where both of the owners live, and the name of this place literally translates into English as Mosquito Mountain. So I'm not sure if I want to visit that. I hate mosquitoes, especially here in Hong Kong. But the symbol of the brewery, which you can see on the top of the can here, is designed to look like the small mountain. But these guys have a very both of them have very impressive CVs behind them. So Rihards holds a master's degree in electronics from Riga Technical University, and he worked as a researcher, a software developer, a data science, and also a machine learning engineer. And he's also one of the co-founders of and chief operating officers of a company called Data and Vision, who provide automated machine learning platforms for financial companies. Edis, on the other hand, is a medical doctor by occupation, and he works in a hospital as a medical statistician and is also an acting assistant and clinical simulation specialist in the Faculty of Medicine, specifically the Department of Clinical Skills and Medical Technologies. He qualified as a chemistry teacher, a little bit like me, and is also one of the founders of a company that provides 3D printer distributions as well. So yeah, these two guys behind this brewery have done a hell of a lot. But in addition to this, the two of them were avid home brewers. So Richard started home brewing back in 2012, and the first two batches of beer that he produced were, simple extract brews. But after this, he moved on to all grain brewing. But apparently he enjoyed brewing IPAs, double IPAs, and also imperial stouts. But the two guys started home brewing together when they both moved to ODU back in 2017. But every week or second week, they would brew a new batch of beer after work, and they would also try some different beers from the local beer shop to learn more about different hops, different yeasts, malts, and also different breweries from across the world. But in January of 2019, they met some guys from the Hoppala Brewery who have featured on the channel before, and they negotiated a deal to brew a 100 litre batch of beer at their brewery. So the first beer they produced was an imperial stout with lactose, coffee, and tonka beans. It was called the Night at HES, the hydroelectric station, and they got really good feedback on this beer when they took it up to one of the festivals in Riga, and it was this that kind of acted as a confidence booster for them and encouraged them to think about taking their project commercial. So they released their first beer in May of 2019, taking the brewery name, of course, ODU, after the ODU city where they live, and they produced their second batch of 100 litres of this beer before they started moving on to produce 1,000 litre batches every month. But in 2020, they started producing their beers at V1 Brewery in Adagi, and then by late 2020, they began exporting their beers to a few countries in Europe. So this was places like Copenhagen. I think they put some of them into Norway as well. I'm not exactly sure, but over the last few years, they've continued to build up their output and their exports, and they've been producing their beers in a couple of different breweries. I've got a feeling that they brew most of their beers at the Hoppala brewery in Latvia these days as well, in the Adagi area. But according to Untappd, these guys had produced about 55 different kinds of beer as of April 2024, and that number will no doubt increase as time goes on. Let me just check that I had that number right. Yes, 50 different kinds of beer according to Untappd. So we can get rid of the brewery notes now, and we can focus on the beer itself. But yeah, if you want to learn more about ODU Brewery, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram. They are a wee bit more active on there than they are with their website. Their website's pretty basic, but you can also check out the Rate Beer, Untappd, and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So let's go on and have a wee look at the beer itself. So this one, I think this is a 440 milliliter can. You can see the artwork on this one is pretty nice. You can see the ODU Brewery symbol at the top there, and Brix. I'm just going to put my face behind that so the camera focuses on this, because it likes to focus on faces. But yeah, there is the ODU symbol. Silver top on the can there, as I said, 440 milliliters. This beer actually wasn't really that expensive. I think I want to say that I paid about 80 Hong Kong dollars for this, which when you consider it as a European import is pretty good. It's probably quite a bit more expensive than you pay for it in Latvia, right enough. But this one, if you $80 is about £8 sterling, €9, $10 American, something like that. So yeah, 5.5% smoothie sour. This one, it says Brix, peach and lime, is heavily fruited smoothie beer, contains barley, wheat and oats, which is what we would expect. So as I say, first time reviewing a beer from these guys in 2 or 3 years, something like that. So let's get it out into the glass and see how we got on. The Brix Peach and Lime 5.5% smoothie sour from ODU Brewery in Latvia, which is a very, very good beer country these days. So let's do this. Oh, that looks very promising. So as you'll know if you've watched the channel for any length of time, I'm a huge fan of the smoothie sours, thanks to the likes of Elm 11, who are very close to me in Malmö in the south of Sweden, and also the likes, Duck Pond and Fermenterna and guys like this. We were quite spoiled for smoothie sours in Sweden, in fact. But back home in the motherland of Scotland, we have Holy Goat and Vault City, of course, as well. So I love smoothie sours thanks to those breweries. So trying ones from different countries is always very interesting. but this one looks very, very promising, and I've heard good things about their stuff. So yeah, as you can see, we've poured most of the beer out into the glass in this case, but it looks pretty much as you would expect. So yeah, you can see lovely, very bright, sort of almost like mango colour. This one, peach, I guess is probably the way to describe it. But you can see this beer is hazy as fuck, as you would expect, and that's because of the oat content, wheat content, and to a degree the yeast and the adjuncts as well. Quite a little bit of carbonation visible in this one, and this beer is like really, really thick. You can see the carbonation is moving up very, very slowly in this one. I'm not sure if you guys will be able to see that on the camera there, but the carbonation is just going like that in the beer. But yeah, remember, the colour of your beer depends on a few different things. One, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. Two, length of your wort boil is also going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. But any barrel aging that you do or adjuncts you put into the beer will affect its colour as well. But yeah, when it comes to modern sour beers like this, the fruits and adjuncts that you use are going to play quite a role. But in honesty, this beer is not really surprising in terms of its appearance when you consider what it is and what it's supposed to be. So yeah, most of the colour in this one will be coming from the type of malts and the peach, of course, as well. I think the lime's not really going to play that much of a role. But yeah, as I said, the carbonation is visible in this one, going up to the surface very, very slowly, but this looks pretty much as you would expect from a smoothie sour beer. So yeah, I like how this one goes together. I really don't think we need to say much more about it. I think we can move on and have a wee look at the aroma. And as I've said on the channel many times before, when it comes to these smoothie sours, quite often these are very simple in terms of their aroma profile and flavour profile, but if they're done well, they are great, great beers. So let's have a look at this. Yeah, I think I've got a little bit of a sniffle in my nose, so I'm just going to pause the video once again, blow my nose, and we'll come back. That's better, sorted now. So, yeah, much, much better. I don't know if I'm getting hay fever here in Hong Kong. I didn't think I would get hay fever, and I've never had it before, but yeah, anyway, must be the humidity or something that I'm still getting used to. But the aroma of this beer is beautiful. I think I'm going to enjoy this a lot, actually. It's everything that you'd expect. You can smell the freshness of the fruit in there. You've got this big, lovely yogurty backbone, which I find you always want from a smoothie sour. And there's just a little bit of a kind of green placebo component in this one. This beer does say that it doesn't contain hops, and this is something we need to talk about with these modern sour beers. So back in the day with the old school sour beers, you know, the lambics, the Heusses, and stuff like this, and also with the Flanders Reds, what they would do in these beers is they would add older hops that had lost a little bit of their alpha acid potency, because then the bitterness that you get from the hops isn't going to take away from the sourness of the beer, but you're also going to add that little bit more complexity to the flavour. With modern sour beers like this, where they're, you know, firing a lot of adjunct fruit into it, the fruit that you add into the beer is always going to suppress a little bit of that hoppy character anyway. So many of the modern sour beer brewers don't add hops into their beer because they say it's a little bit pointless. Some do though, such as Holy Goat and Vault City for back home in Scotland. The Swedish brewers, you know, Elm 11, Fermentera and Duck Pond, these guys didn't used to do that. So it's always an interesting thing to think about when it comes to sour beers. But I think from the aroma of this one, I don't think there are hops in this beer, but it still gives you that little bit of kind of green placebo type effect. But the aroma of this is beautiful, big notes. But let's just try and break this down then and describe it for you a wee bit more in depth before we actually taste the thing. But I mean, you can see from sugaring this beer around, this is going to be good. This is going to be good. Yeah, so it's beautiful. I mean, the backbone of this beer, you do get a little bit of like that fresh white bready bread crust, of course. There's a wee touch of cracker and things like that, but that is very, very minimal. Much of this beer, much of it, you do have the fluffy white bread, like I said, but it comes across as like very yogurty, very creamy sort of thing. So you've got that big sort of petit filou, fromage frais, yogurty type note coming out of the beer, which I think is great. So yeah, petit filou, fromage frais, yogurty type notes in this one. A lot of that will be coming from the mix of the wheat and the oats in the beer. The yeast is also going to play a role. But yeah, you do get a little tiny touch of sweetness out of this one in the middle. Like you can smell a little bit of that Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotchy type note coming out of the beer. And as I say, it's just absolutely beautiful. I love the smell of these smoothie sour beers. This is great. On the malty side of things, I don't know if there's much more to say. As I say, big oaty creaminess. You can smell the smoothness of the wheat and stuff in there. It all kind of culminates together to give that that big yogurty type note. Yeah, I think that's it, to be honest with you. Petit filou yogurts, I think, is the way to describe the malt base in this one. On the hoppy side of things, the green component, like I said, I'm pretty sure this beer doesn't have hops in it, but you still get a little tiny touch of earthiness out of this one. There is a little bit of herbal character in there, some floral notes, some grassiness, but like I say, this is pretty much all placebo because these are things that you expect of beer, but I don't think that they are necessarily coming out in this particular one. But on the fruity side of things, it's interesting because when you smell this, the juiciness of the peach, and I will point out that peach is a fruit that I'm not madly familiar with. That's definitely fair to say. The peach is it has a little bit of sharpness in the top of the nose, but overall I find the peach quite juicy in this one. And other than that, you're getting the limes, and the limes come across as very kind of smooth and juicy as well, whereas I've always had lime down as being a little bit more of a kind of punchy and zesty fruit. So yeah, the way that the aroma pieces together in this one, I think, is really very, very nice. So yeah, aroma wise, the flavour of this, or the aroma of this beer, not the flavour of the beer, is absolutely great, and it makes me very, very curious. As I say, I've heard very good things about these smoothie sours from Brix. So yeah, take a little bit of time to enjoy the aroma of this beer before you get stuck into it. But yeah, I think it's about time that we try this one then. So yeah, this is the Brix Peach and Lime, a 5.5% smoothie sour from ODU Brewery, a contract gypsy brew, whatever you want to call them, from Latvia, brewing in the Adagi region near Riga. So let's get stuck into this one. Slanja, skål, cheers, or as I believe they say in Latvian, prieka. Here we go. Yeah. That's lovely. That is really very, very good. Ooh. Now, I can see why people have been telling me that these ODU sour beers are worth checking out. I'm glad that I picked up one of these. And literally, they had 4 or 5 of them in Gur beer, so I just picked up the one that caught my eye the most. And I haven't had a peach sour in ages, and that was why I chose this one. But yeah, they've got some different berry sours and things, so maybe we should try the red one. I always find with the smoothie sours, you try a red one and try a yellow one. So many red sours out there these days. I think the yellow ones, for me, are a bit more interesting these days. But yeah, I'm going to say straight away, this, for me, is a really simple beer, but it's really, really well done. And as I say, with smoothie sours, that's what you want. These beers are meant to be quite straightforward, but just enjoyable, and this beer ticks both of those boxes. So yeah, have to say this is up there with, you know, Elm 11, Duck Pond, the Swedish breweries, and you know, the Scottish breweries that I've tried. But this is definitely more akin to, I've seen some people talking about a sub style called the Nordic sours, and this one is kind of like that. And you know, the Baltics are quite related to the Nordics, quite close to us in some ways. But yeah, this is awesome. All I can say is big thumbs up to ODU Brewery. This makes me curious to try some of their other stuff. I need to try some dark beers from these guys as well. But anyway, let's break this beer down and describe it for you a bit more in depth. But I'm going to say this is going to be a very positive review. We'll say that right away. Oh, that's fucking good. Yeah. I'm going to say about this one, it's quite a subtle flavour in this beer. Actually, it comes in really nice and juicy, and then it just lingers there. It's like a very mild flavour on the palate, but you still get this really smooth, like neutral yogurty flavour that lingers into the aftertaste with just a wee bit of the fruity adjunct sitting on top of it. I'd be curious to see if the red sours are a bit like this as well, but this is really quite mild in terms of its flavour, but as I say, it's really nicely done. The Swedish ones that I had are very big and, you know, very lingering. This is a bit more subtle, I guess is the right word for it. But let's focus on the flavour of this beer and just break that down for you and describe it a bit more in depth. So, middle third of your palate then with this beer, the backbone of it is that lovely smooth white bready bread crust. You can feel that there, and that does take a back seat in this beer to everything else. But yeah, lovely fresh white bready bread crust there. As you move further forward on that middle third of the palate, there's a little tiny hint of woodiness there, little smattering of cracker, but other than that, not too much to report. Above that, you do get a little bit of a white bready note to the beer, like a fluffy, fresh, white bready character. And then above all of that, you get the nice dense, wheaty and oaty notes out of this beer. So the wheat in this beer incidentally is quite smooth. But the wheaty character in this beer gives you that really dense white bready note, which I like. So yeah, really big, dense, white bready character coming out of this beer. And above all of that, you can feel the oaty notes out of this one. So above that, yeah, like lovely kind of creamy oaty character coming out of the beer. And I would say, yeah, just big creamy oaty notes out of this one. As you go down the middle line of your palate, it's got this lovely, just smooth creamy note, and it just gets a little bit drier as you go out toward the edge of the palate. But the wheat and the oats in this beer kind of combine and give you this big, smooth, sort of yogurty character, which is really, really great. And then in the dead centre of your palate, you can feel there's there's a very slight touch of that Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotchy sort of thing coming out of this one, and that sweetness does linger into the aftertaste. But what I will say about this beer is that it's certainly not, it's one of the creamier smoothie sours that I've come across, but it's certainly not the sweetest. I think that's fair to say. So that's one of the other things that makes this beer really interesting, is that it just seems to take a different approach. I know that Arpus are, of course, the best known. They're the best known brewery from Latvia. I think that's definitely fair to say. I've not tried many of their kind of smoothie sours. I really need to see if they're along the same vibe as this, but maybe the Latvian sours are just more kind of creamy and less bold in terms of their flavour. Well, not less bold, but less punchy in terms of their flavours. But this, as I say, this is just a quite different approach to my palate, but I really like it. I think at this point we've said everything we need to about the middle third of the palate with this beer. So let's go to the back third of the palate. And as I say often on the channel, sweeter flavours come out further forward, more dry and bitter flavours come out further back. But yeah, the border region between middle and back third of your palate in this beer, you get the kind of fluffy white bread in the base, and you get the kind of more dense wheaty character above that. But the base of that back third of your palate, there's a little bit of a drier bread crust in there, wee touch of cracker, then it's the fluffy white bread, which again still feels quite dense and very smooth, and then above that you can feel the more dense wheaty white bready character in there, and then you've got some yeasty notes in the top of the back third of your palate. So let's look a wee bit at those. But yeah, the yeasty notes in this beer are quite straightforward. I mean, that yeasty character, dense white bread in the middle, a bit of a more sort of creamy, yogurty, oaty sort of thing around the edge, and I think that's it, to be honest with you. Yeah, dense, sweet white bread in the middle, then a more creamy, oaty, yogurty note above that. So yeah, back third of your palate, you can certainly feel the flavour is taller. Then as you move further forward into the middle third of your tongue, it just kind of condenses down and squashes together that little bit more. So yeah, the way everything pieces together on that malty side of the beer, I think, is very, very nice. So it's a big, big thumbs up from me. Let's go on to the green component, or the placebo green component as it is in this case. So I told you about the thing with the hops earlier in this video. You can tell from the flavour that this beer definitely doesn't have the hops in it. The sides of your palate are very, very smooth, and you know, when you add hops into these sour beers, the fruity adjuncts are always going to suppress that a little bit. So yeah, in the back corners of the palate, you've got a nice little bit of you do get a little bit of that placebo earthiness in there. There's a little touch of herbal character as you move further forward, but then yeah, beyond that, the whole side of your palate is very smooth, and then round the front curve of the tongue, it's just that little bit more light and grassy, I would say. So yeah, the way everything pieces together in this one, I think, is very, very nice. So I think on the fruity side of the beer, yeah, it's probably time to talk about that with this beer now, but you can certainly feel some of the juiciness of the peach going round the sides of your palate there, and a bit of the zestiness of the lemon round the front curve of your tongue for sure. But yeah, front third of your palate with this beer then. The border region between front third and middle third of your palate, you get the white bread in the base from the barley malt and a wee bit of the denser wheaty note above that. But then yeah, white bread crust in the base, white bread, the wheat, the oat, quite a lot of the oaty creaminess sitting there, and then you get the fruity adjuncts sitting above that. And it's quite, again, quite straightforward. For me, the lime kind of comes out a bit more into the aftertaste. I think it's the peach that is the kind of anchor in this beer. You can feel that big juicy peachy note, and when you take the beer in, it's got a little bit of sharpness to it. So yeah, a little bit of peachy sharpness there when you first take it in, particularly the back of that front third of your palate, but the way it mellows out is just lovely. And I mean, you have got little other flavours in there, like, you know, a bit of apricot and a bit of papaya and stuff like that. Particularly in the middle of that front third of your palate, you can feel those little dry fruity flavours. But yeah, obviously all of that's coming from the peach, but for me those are just kind of placebo things. But yeah, on the front half of that front third of your palate, it is more about the kind of juicy lime, and I would point out that it is a very juicy lime in this one rather than being really zesty and sharp and things like that. So they've got the blend of fruit in this one really nicely done. I would be very curious to know whether they've thought about ratios with the flavour, if it's like a 50-50 or a 75 peach, 25 lime or something like that. That would be my guess, 75 peach, 25 lime with this one. But yeah, it's a great beer, this one, in terms of how it all goes together, and I really, really like this. So yeah, as I say, a very, very smooth, creamy smoothie sour, this one actually, but a little bit more, it's not quite as punchy as what I've had from the Nordic breweries for sure. It is more yogurty and smooth, and in the it's more like the yogurt is, the kind of smoothie side of things is dominant, and the fruits are a little bit more subtle, I would say. But certainly I'd be very curious to try a few of the other beers in this series. I forget what ones were available, but like I say, I just picked one to start with, and it's turned out to be a very good decision. So yeah, let's round off this review then with a wee quick look at the mouthfeel then. So for me, this beer, it's kind of top end of mid-bodied, bottom end of full-bodied. Carbonation is very, very smooth. It has that creamy sort of yogurty drink type mouthfeel to it. Absolutely great. Tells you on the back of the can that this one is 6.7 IBUs. Makes sense. Really no noticeable bitterness to this one at all, which makes sense with that particular rating. The malt, as we said, a little bit smooth underneath and very, very slightly dry, but yeah, smooth and creamy in the middle, very slightly sweet on top. Then you've got these lovely juicy fruity notes in this one. It's a beautifully done beer, this one. Very, very easy to drink, and it certainly makes me quite curious about the other beers in this series, as well as some of the other sort of sour beers that these guys have produced. But yeah, I think that's everything we can really say about this one, to be honest with you. Very, very positive. As I say, a little bit more of a mild smoothie sour compared to what I'm used to. But yeah, I think we need to review more of these. But yeah, once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from ODU Brewery as well. We need to try a few more different styles from these guys actually, but the Brix series is one that I certainly do want to revisit at some stage. Pardon me, and we will do that very, very soon. But yeah, this one was the Brix Peach and Lime 5.5% smoothie sour from ODU Brewery, a contract gypsy brewery, whatever you want to call them, based in the Adagi region in near Riga in Latvia. So once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer. Let me know your favourite beers from this brewery, and do let me know some other Latvian breweries that I should check out as well, because I would be very curious about that. But until the next time, Slanja, Skål, cheers, and see you guys in the next review. Ciao just now.